Okay, hello everybody, good evening, welcome to the last panel of the day. My name's Tobias Revell. You may remember me from such panels as the one we had this afternoon, whatever that was called. We already, sorry, I'm a professional, right? Let's do this. We already had in the panels today and in some of the other events a lot of discussion around the role of the body and the human in this idea of the interfaces. Obviously, to a degree, an interface is the thing, the mediator between the sort of human sensorium, the human body, and the human motor function, and the network and the world of the machines. So this panel and this lineup of artists and speakers are going to talk a bit more about that notion, the idea of the body and the extended body. I'm going to introduce them one by one as before, and we'll also have time for a question after each speaker before the panel. So I'll try and come up with some questions, but if anything springs to mind after you've heard a presentation, please raise your hand and the roving microphone will find you. We're going to begin with a performance lecture from Marianna Maruyama, who is an artist based in The Hague. Please join me in welcoming Marianna. Oh, yeah.
Yes, hello, thank you. Yeah, my name is Marianna Maruyama, and as you heard, I am based in The Hague. I'm an artist, let's see. So I want to say first thanks to Arjan for inviting me, and also to Barbara and Jan, and also to Jeroen and Bram for all of the technical things. So thanks to everyone at IMPAKT. Well, what I'm about to do today is something I haven't done before. So I'm going to have to ask, actually, one of you maybe, to come up here and give me a hand. Is there someone who might be able to come up here and give me a hand? And keeping in mind that you will be recorded. So as you know, there are a couple of video cameras in the room. So just keep it in mind. We can talk about that more. But is there someone who could please come up and give me a hand? And I won't do anything without your permission, I promise. So I just need one person. Oh, thank you. Great. Thank you. Please come stand over here. Thank you. What is your name, please?
I'm
Brian, can I tell everyone your name? Yeah, okay, his name is Brian. And what's your last name? Okay, can I tell them your last name? His last name is Den Hoogte. Yeah, okay. Okay. So thank you for joining me. Now, well, actually, before we start, would you hold my hand, please? The other one, thanks. Yeah. Okay. And actually, you're a little bit tall, so let's move this up a little bit higher. Okay. Oh. Can you help me, maybe? You have to turn this here. Yeah. I think it's the other way. Okay, maybe it's good enough. You might have to bend down a little bit. Okay, so everyone can hear you. Brian, you realize that there's at least one camera up there, and there's another one there. And is that all? There's only two cameras? Are there more? Three cameras. Okay. And actually, and then there's how many microphones are actually? There's 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 microphones. So, and what's going to happen with all these images? Well, actually, there's another camera it's being live streamed on Facebook. So there are a lot of other people seeing this. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, I suppose so.
Yeah. Okay. And it's also going to be in the YouTube channel of the IMPAKT Festival. Is that okay with you? Okay. All right. Good. You're going along well. Okay. So there probably are a few other cameras in this room. For example, I mean, I have a phone, and maybe you have a phone. You have it with you?
Yes, I have.
Oh, great. Can I borrow it?
Just for a second?
Just for a second, yeah. Thanks a lot. Okay. All right. Well, let's see. Is it on?
Well, if you turn it on.
Okay. So I'll hold it, and can you turn it on? Okay, great. And can you like turn on? I
Want
won't
to
like.
make a photo?
Yeah. Well, maybe we might.
This is the photo.
Not yet. Yeah. Is your volume on?
No, it's inside.
Oh, go ahead and turn on the volume, if that's okay with you. And also any notification volumes. If you're fine with it. Okay, thank you. Okay, good. Can I, by the way, because now I have your phone, and I thought since you're here in this IMPAKT festival and I'm here too, and maybe we know some of the same people, so I was wondering if I could look at your contacts. Is it? Do you mind?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Don't call my mother.
I won't. Without your permission, I won't. Can you just pull up the contacts?
Confused.
And is it okay if I read out a few of them? Yeah. So there's starting at A. There's Anke. Oh, but maybe we don't read their full names. There's a couple of Annas and Anna. A lot of Annas.
Yeah, that's really typical Dutch.
Annelies and Anouk. You have a lot of friends. There's also Apple and Aram and Arif and Aristo. There's Aryan. Finally, someone we know. Okay, so I was wondering if you could maybe show me some of your photos. Would that be all right?
No, there's nothing strange in my photos, but I hope there are no weird selfies or something.
Maybe there's
It's
one.
just like pictures of...
There's a lot of documents and stuff and screens. It looks like, we were here together today, so. Can you maybe show one of them that you might want to share with the whole audience? Oh, hey!
Oh. I thought the game quote was nice.
Oh, can you speak in the mic? They can't hear you.
I thought the game quote was nice today. Yeah, this one.
Okay. Can you zoom in on this? It's you've already seen it, all of you who are here today, so it's not the most interesting photo, I think, for us to see. Can you choose one more interesting?
Another one. Well, I just recently deleted all of my photos.
Okay. Can you talk into the mic?
Sorry, I recently deleted most of my photos, so there aren't that many. These are two friends of mine lying on the floor in a party.
Okay, that's better. I hope they don't mind. Do you think they would?
Maybe. As long as you don't do the zoom in on this one.
Oh, okay. I hope it's not too late for that. Okay. So, yeah, you said don't call your mother, but is there someone that maybe we could call? Or maybe it's easier, like most people do, to start out with a text message. So maybe you can send them an SMS, someone. Do you have a good SMS service? It's not too expensive to send it.
Well, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Like WhatsApp?
Yeah, WhatsApp is okay. But SMS, I heard the SMS, 95% of people respond within 90 seconds.
With an SMS?
Yeah. That's what the SMS service providers, that's what they tell us. So WhatsApp is a little bit slower, I think. But you can, please, could you send a WhatsApp message to someone?
With my left hand?
Yeah.
Do we want to send an audio message or a normal message?
Oh, sure. Audio is fine, yeah.
And what should I say?
Just tell them, who is this, by the way? Who are we sending it to?
This is Carlijn.
Okay. Maybe tell Carlijn what we're doing here, that you're in the middle of a performance and you got pulled up on the stage in front of a bunch of strangers and it's being live streamed. And and she'll be made public too.
Hi, Carlijn. I'm here I'm invited at the stage at the IMPAKT Festival in a performance, and part of the performance is that I'm sending a voice message to you right now. If you want, you can look it up on the live stream on Facebook of the IMPAKT Festival, and you see us like sending a voice message to you.
All right, it's on the way. So let's see if she replies. In the meantime, I was thinking about if I could have your number also. Could I have your phone number? And do you want to share it with everyone or just with me? Or maybe no one?
I don't know if it goes like viral, and are there marketeers watching, like trying to sell me stuff
You
later
can just
on?
tell me. Okay, all right. I'll write it down later. Okay, I was wondering a few more things since we're still waiting from Carlijn to respond. I was wondering where you have been recently. Have you do you use Google Maps, or do you keep your location services on?
Yes,
Yeah.
actually I made some sort of someone I know made like this art piece of my Google Maps data.
Okay. Do you want to show us where you've been?
Well, if we keep it general. This is today.
Okay, so it looks like you were in Nijmegen. You live in Nijmegen?
Yes.
Oh, okay. He
But
lives in
I'm
Nijmegen.
moving next week, so then I don't live in Nijmegen anymore.
Okay, and you traveled by train at 12:25 to here, and you arrived at 3:55. Is that right?
That's not correct.
No?
I arrived earlier.
Okay. Okay, and was it the trip was fine?
Yeah.
Okay. You make that trip regularly?
Yeah,
Yeah.
every now and then.
Okay. All right. Thanks for letting us know. I'm curious about the rest of the details, but maybe next time. Okay. Yeah, I guess the next thing is that since you gave me your number and now we can stay in touch, then I also was hoping to kind of get in touch with the rest of you. Maybe we can also stay in touch by phone, and I can tell you more about what I'm doing, and you know, I want to improve my art performances, so I need to have some feedback. So you can just actually, it's really simple. You can just since we already got in touch, we already have, you know, exchanged numbers, but not with the rest of you. What you can do is just send an SMS. If you have a Dutch number, it's the easiest because you probably won't have to pay. But it doesn't work for it's not a WhatsApp number. You can't do it by web. It has to be a real SMS. So send an SMS to this number right here, and just go ahead and turn on your phone volume and your ringer and everything. If you have the opportunity to do it, then I would really encourage you to just send an SMS so we can keep in touch, just like we are keeping in touch. So you can just do that right now. Just go ahead and take out your phone and send an SMS. If you don't have a Dutch phone, I have an alternative. And that is that you can come to me after the whole performance and the evening, and I have a nice analog alternative for that. So just come up to me and we can exchange numbers the old-fashioned way. All right, so I think that's about it. Those of you who haven't sent a SMS, then you know, you should go ahead and do it. And if you're not planning to, then we can keep in touch after the performance, after the evening has finished. So thank you, Brian. You were great. You're really helpful. You let me know a lot about you. I feel like I got to know you.
almost as good as Google knows me.
Thanks. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Marianna. All right, Marianna's going to be back later at the end of the, after Veronika and the other panelists. So join me now in welcoming Veronika Liebl to the stage. She's going to come up and get ready. Veronika is Director of European Cooperation and a co-director of a little-known operation called Ars Electronica. Join me in welcoming Veronika.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I think most of you know me already. My name is Veronika, and I'm working for Ars Electronica for the little time of 9 years now. And I was invited to speak about a few projects we've presented within the last years at Ars Electronica. It is mostly projects dealing with interfaces which are controlled by our bodies. Then it's also interfaces functioning as extension to our bodies, and it's also embodied interfaces. The first one I will start with is actually a co-development from Ars Electronica. It is ET65, and it is a cooperation project together with an excavator company in the region of Upper Austria and a medical engineering company called GTEC. And we actually collaborate with them for quite a while now because we bring in the framework of apprenticeship trainee programs, young workers from their company backgrounds for a few days trainee programs at Ars Electronica to really see or understand about new technologies and also see how they impact the society in general and their actual working conditions. And within one of these conversations, we posed the question, I would say, how the collaboration and the co-working between human and machine could look like and how we can move and be moved much differently from what is now and today. The task for festival audiences when we produced this work was to move this 7-ton machine in the middle of the festival just with the power of the mind or the eyes. We did this through brain-computer interfaces and eye-tracking machines. And it was an opportunity for people to get engaged in these technologies. Maybe just a few background information on brain-computer interfaces. I'm sure many of you know it, and maybe there are even more experts than I am. But of course, brain-computer interfaces are now quite in use in the field of neurosciences, and they can be of help, in particular in the rehabilitation for stroke patients. They can also be helping in the communication with paralyzed patients and coma patients. And in particular, the company we are working with is also using it for the trigger of devices for disabled people. And the system we use, that's this BCI here, is just having 8 points on the scalp where it measures the waves and puts that into signals. So it's a quite easy setup, and it is nothing what you need or where you need days or weeks of training. Visitors can really experience this with a training of, I think, like 5 minutes or 10 minutes a max. And this is really the whole thing why we created this project. We wanted to engage non-expert audiences in a discussion. What are BCIs? What can they do? What the limits are? And also that this discussion was at every point mediated by trainers from our brain lab team and from experts from Ars Electronica. Based on this project, actually, for the last edition of Ars Electronica, we produced a collaboration with the fire brigades, and it is the case in Upper Austria, in our region, that most of the fire brigades working on a really voluntary basis. So it is nothing where they have access and knowledge about technologies and new technologies that could help their way of working. But yet, we are actually having one of the biggest manufacturers in the field of firefighting in the region. And the thing we did is to bring them together and to understand what their needs are and what the possibilities are at the other side, and create and program a contest and a challenge where the firefighters, these volunteer groups from the region, hundreds of them, created a battle during the festival where they had to fulfill their usual tasks, but not with the usual equipment, but really using brain-computer interfaces and robotic elements and so on. Of course, I mean, obviously, Ars Electronica is not necessarily and primarily interested in the innovative components and the technological aspects, but also very much in how to engage these technologies in a more inclusive and also human-centered way. And for this, we have staged within the past 2 festival editions a brain hackathon. It's like a usual hackathon, but we have invited artists and designers and programmers and also philosophers to work with us and the company GTEC, which is producing these brain-computer interfaces, on discovering new opportunities and also new possibilities, how these technologies can be actually of use in other fields than already applied to. One of the really most outstanding projects, also an artist who participated in one of the hackathons and who was a residency artist at Ars Electronica, is Anuk Wipprecht. And she's a designer designing fashion as an interface. And in this specific case, she was actually questioning how she can design tools, new technologies, to help improve medical health therapy. In particular, in this case, for kids with ADHD syndromes. And in this case, she was designing this unicorn headset in the shape of a unicorn horn. And she was, it's a 3D printable tool, which is actually, of course, measuring, first of all, the activation, but then also when the activation points out to extreme level, triggering a camera. So whenever then kids can go back and see which kinds of actual situations are distracting them most, and understand and learn really about their own situations. Also, I think it is a brilliant example of how it is not only improving the process of the person itself, but maybe even decreasing barriers to people to collaborate or to interact and communicate with people. Of course, I mean, there are not only brain-computer interface projects. In this case, I think it's a quite popular and known project. Most of you will know this. It's an eye tracking project from Zach Lieberman and other artists who collaborated with an LA graffiti artist who was diagnosed with an illness which made him completely paralyzed besides his eyes, and they developed a software, an open source software, where he can paint again with the power of his eyes. And it was not only a tool of empowerment, but it was also about raising awareness about marginalized illnesses, and in particular those where no big industry is producing tools. I mean, we had this discussion already during one of the breakout groups today. When we talk about interfaces, it is not only necessarily about applications and devices. It may also be about non-object tools or non-object ways of interfaces. And this specific speculative project, Thermal Apus, is a project where the traditional ink from tattoos is exchanged with biosensors. And in this case, it's pig skin. And it gives valuable information about the inner body, the metabolic data of the body, in particular the blood sources and also change of blood. So it can be potentially interesting, for example, for diabetes patients. The cyborg artist Moon Reavers works in a similar way, like interface-like way, but exploring more the environmental data she's receiving. She has an implanted seismic sensor in her foot or feet, and she's receiving through this actually live data on earthquakes from all over the world, and translating this then in performances through performances or dance in her projects. A project which is already a bit older but still absolutely interesting in my eyes is Hackberry. It is a bionic arm which is completely open source and 3D printable. It is actually a motorized arm which is triggered by the muscle stimuli from the remaining arm parts. And it is in that case interesting because the industry for bionic arms is still extremely expensive, and it is the case that in particular the market for arms is quite a small one, that the intensive or the motivation for companies is a small one to make the prices cheaper. And actually even in Austria I know a case that the company stepped back from producing it because the market with, for example, knees is a much bigger one than for arms. So it is not only a project about empowerment, but really about accessibility in total. The second project I've brought in the field of prosthetics is from Artificial Skins and Bones. It's a collective. It came out of a student group, a student class from Kunsthochschule Weißensee in Berlin, Fab Lab Berlin, and Otto Bock. It's a prosthetics company. And they explored or examined the natural design, the function, the patterns of the natural body, and tried to use and extract this for artificial body parts in order to also improve the interaction and aesthetics between artificial and natural body parts. In particular, this project here, it is a flexible textile structure where the patterns and also the colors are shaping based on muscle stimuli and different environmental stimuli. I skipped that. A project I absolutely love, and which was an absolute highlight when we showcased it at the festival, because it is really showcasing this physical relationship and a tool or a way where you not only control with the body and interface, but it also controls you, is Neurotransmitter 3000. It is a body swing, a 7-meter high body swing, I think, and it is also controlled with your biometric data, and through sensors it measures heart rate, I think also temperature and gravity, and moves them back into the motion process of the swing. Yeah, and of course, I mean, when we talk about bodies and interfaces, it is often a highly intimate thing and issue, and of course we have to consider also cultural, social and ethical issues and backgrounds in this discussion. And I think this project is a quite radical but extremely relevant example to question the human replacement in this process. And the end of life care machine poses the question how a world would look like if the humans are really replaced. And it is a built machine to caress and to guide and comfort the patients in a dying process. I think that should leave us also for the discussion, and thanks.
Thank you, Veronika. Are there any questions from the audience for Veronika at this stage? Oh, one at the top of the back there.
Veronika, please, I was interested with the project with the firefighters. What was their reaction? Because I can imagine they are people who need to trust their equipment, they need to feel comfortable, they need to be also trusted. So how do they feel to have this on their head while they are performing the firefight?
Absolutely. So obviously it was a test environment. That's, I think, that was the main feature of the festival platform, to put this in a complete separate test environment where they didn't have to showcase. And of course, most of this equipment will not be used within the next years in firefighting. It was much more about a process of engaging those firefighters in a discussion what can be potentially interesting for them, and to learn them or see how they can engage. And for them, the most interesting reaction we saw is that they were extremely happy to have a platform where they can engage also with this big firefighting company, where they have usually no access to these companies. They don't have access to usual audiences. So this immediate reaction, a place to showcase, and also being a platform, was perceived really, really well.
Brilliant. Thank you, Veronika. Thank Veronika again. Come on. All right, I'm going to invite now Simei Wu and Mariah Ballman. Simei Wu is a member of New Emergences, which is an organization looking at underrepresented voices in arts and digital communities. And Mariah Ballman is an artist, technologist, and developer. Please join me in welcoming them.
Hello. I'm going to be really quick before I pass over to Mariah. But my name is Simei Wu, and I'm a musician, a composer. I work with media. But today on this panel, I'm representing New Emergences, which is a new foundation as of last year, although it's been 3 years in existence. So we're called Stichting New Emergences. We are a very small team of 6, and we do regular events throughout the year in the Netherlands or perhaps abroad. Panel discussions, workshops, all that kind of thing, concerts. So we advocate for diversity. We work with the acknowledgement and the implementation of diversity. We do this by trying to highlight voices of the underrepresented within arts and digital communities in the Netherlands. We openly try and discuss difficult topics, or ones that could be difficult. Gender, our culture, disabling qualities in our society, all the isms, race, class. So we work with a lot of human elements, our personalities, our patterns, societal barriers, perspectives. So what we're really hoping for is like an open mind to system change, greater perspective awareness, more listening, more hearing people. But also while we're here, we're in the research phase for a 2-part event with IMPAKT, which will hopefully be in the near future. It's called Access and Disablism. So what will be is a discussion that goes into a workshop where it will be discussing, designing and making prototypes for interfaces, innovated, led by, made and used by disabled people. We're interested in facilitating, creating a model that actually is flexible in the core, that can be iterated again, but use a sort of bottom-up approach, so all the people that are involved, it will work from that point onwards. We want it to be disability-led from the beginning and throughout, with organisations who have the expertise and knowledge, because I don't have it. But anyway, to Mariah, she's going to be working with us on the workshop, so.
All right. Yes, there's my title slide. So I think there's some connection to Veronika's talk, which I didn't know about that was going to be. So what I want to talk about is future body prostheses. And I first start with a little bit of background. A couple of years ago, I worked at STIME, and I was working on this project together with the Van Boeyen Institute, which is an institute that caters to a lot of disabled clients, like multiple disabled clients. And we were trying to make musical instruments for them that they could play with their very much varying abilities. So I learned a lot about the challenges that come into play there. Then I was also involved in the MetaBody EU project, which was an EU project led by Reverso in Madrid. And the main question in that project was, how can we escape from how the current interfaces of technology are forcing us to move and act in a certain way? Like, how can we escape for that and create something that can cater to the diversity of embodied expression that we all have? Also, disability was one of the core topics of the project. And out of that project, I then came to this project that I'm working on right now, an artistic project. And this came out of having this future vision where the wearables that are now sort of hip and coming up in the future might actually be these body prostheses that are embedded into our bodies, so we can't take them off anymore, called e-bodilies. And then the question, what happens if they malfunction or if they don't bond well with the body? And what then happens to the male bodies? So that's the starting vision or fiction that I'm working from. So I'm interested in body-based sensing and the control of artificial intelligence over our experience of the world, and also how our society deals with people who diverge from the norm. These are all very big topics, so it's a very slow project. So the way I'm doing that is doing a lot of research into literature and technology. I have a very strong technological background as well, so I can actually understand these technologies. Building some speculative prostheses and creating interaction scenarios with them, and also writing short pieces of speculative fiction. In the end, I hope to get to some sort of multi-participant environment where participants can experience life with these prostheses. That's still a long way down the road. So, actually, before I continue, I want to do a little check-in with you to talk about disability. And because it's a sensitive topic, I want you to all close your eyes, and I'm going to ask a few questions. And just put your hand up. I won't tell anyone who had what, but I just want to do a little check-in with you. Yes? Okay. So the first question is, do you consider yourself disabled? Just put your hands up. Okay. Then, do you have limb prostheses? So we're getting to more detail. Do you maybe have an artificial finger, a hand, or an arm? Do you use or have you used walking aids, like crutches? Okay. Does anyone use a hearing aid? Does anyone use visual aids like glasses or lenses? Does any one of you have dental implants or cavity fillings? So just imagine for a moment what your life would have been like living like 200 years ago, when you wouldn't have these aids to help you around in everyday life. Okay, thanks. You can open your eyes again. So I want to present to you this new thing called the smart dental implant. So scientists unveiled this dental implant with sensors that monitor your mouth hygiene. Of course, there's an app. The app will give you insight to your mouth hygiene, alerts when to brush your teeth, dietary advice for eating healthy. And of course, there's the unescapable checkbox, checked already for you, for your convenience to share the data in real time with your dentist. Then you get this nice letter from your security. I made one up, Sublime Health Insurance. We are eager to help you live a healthy life, and your health starts in your mouth. Now we offer you the smart dental implant at a great discount. Not only will we fully pay for placing the implant, you will also receive a discount on your dental insurance premium for the coming year. Why pay more? With the data gathered from the implant, we will assure you of the optimal insurance premium for your dental needs in the years to come. New special feature, instant feedback when you eat something unhealthy with the novel pain transmitters. Couple breaks up after woman finds out her partner is cheating on her through the dental implant app. Okay, so far the fiction. So I came up with this fiction, and then I looked online for some imagery. And I found in 2013 there was a university in Taiwan who created this chip to put on your tooth that could help you monitor your diet. Then a couple of years later, someone made a much smaller version that you can place on your tooth, and that has like biochemical sensing to detect different kinds of chemicals. And one of the scientists involved in there says, in theory, we can modify the bioresponsive layer in these sensors to target other chemicals. We are really limited only by our creativity. Well, maybe there should be other limits. Maybe. So, body prosthesis. This is a future vision. But let's look at the past, because I'm trying to understand what is happening with body prosthesis. So let's look at the history. This is an old image from the 30s, I believe, with an advertisement for a hearing aid. Very big boxes on the table. If you look back in the history, which goes already thousands of years that people have been making body prostheses for disabled people, which were either functional, so they would help you to chew, like already the Chinese used little bamboo pieces to make artificial teeth, or people would get them from animals or slaves. Things to help you walk, fake arms, glasses, hearing aids. Often there was just a cosmetic element. Glass eyes or fake eyes have been there for very long, and a lot of it is just about, having a normal appearance. Or with the tooth, it's often also about self-confidence, being able to smile wildly, showing your teeth, and also hiding the disability. In the medieval times, people had artificial prostheses for their arms when they lost them in war or something, and they didn't want to show that they were disabled. But then there was also a religious component. The Egyptians, they buried people with prostheses which were never used in real life, but they wanted the dead to continue to the afterlife with a perfect body. And that went from arms, legs to penises, because you need to be complete in the afterlife. And then the last thing also is that sometimes special powers were ascribed to these body prostheses. Like the picture on the top there, this eye, that was actually a clay eye covered with gold. And archaeologists believe that this was a priestess who used this eye to convince people that she had occult powers to see into the future. And I think these last two aspects of body prosthesis are really interesting. I mean, the religious one is, I think, one that really plays now with the wearables. Media is trying to convince everyone should have a perfect body. So there's a very religious component to that ideal. And of course, as we saw earlier in the earlier panel, the magic powers of body extensions are what is appealed to, like knowing more, having more information. So there is like a continuing thing there, I feel. But there are some differences. Like these old body prostheses, they were very much just what you saw was what was there. But the new wearables for health, they are data-driven. They collect data to steer our behavior towards good behavior, especially the commercial ones that are coming out now. And they tend to impose a sense of guilt on the wearer. So where previously body prostheses were also made to hide your shame of being disabled. Now you're made to feel guilty about being imperfect. And there's a lot of questions, like who determines what is good behavior? What is even good behavior? Who has control over this data? Who makes decisions based on this data? And another question is, like, how does technology keep up with new scientific insights? I have some examples from my own life where, like 12 years ago, or well, maybe it was less, I had a physiotherapist who told me, like, well, you have to work on your posture when you're working at a computer, and then you avoid back pains. But now the advice I get from physiotherapists is, well, it doesn't matter what posture you have as long as you change it every so often. So these insights change. So I'm starting to get to the end now. So I think it's really important to start to abandon the concept of the perfect bodies. So to accept the imperfect body that changes all the time, and embrace the diversity of bodies and the people that have them. So I think my proposal, and that's in a sense also a very old proposal of the social model of disability, is like, how can we rethink society so it's not about the disabled adapting and taking part in society, but what about society adapting to the diversity of its constituents? So it's not us and them, we are all together in this. And that, of course, brings a couple of challenges, like designing and creating body extensions for, with, and by the people who will use them. Taking care of customization. The body is continually changing in its ability, shape, and size. It can also be task-specific. And there needs to be space for individual expression. Like, otherwise, every one of you with glasses would have the same frame, right? If it was not about individual expression. And whilst we do it, respect the subcultures. For example, the new implants for deaf people. It might be that experts say, like, well, then we don't need sign language anymore. But that's a very important part of their culture. And they can still express things with sign language that they maybe can't express with the new cochlear implants. And of course, like, the ethical approach to data management. Then to come back, you showed, like, this is a project that I find very promising. It's kind of linked to, I guess, what you showed. But there's this project ongoing called Enabling the Future, which is an organization of volunteers who are working worldwide, and they basically help you, or it's volunteers who 3D print body prostheses for kids with open source models, ways of adapting it to different people, how changing sizes, because of course, especially for children who grow up, it's otherwise very expensive to make body prostheses. And I think that's an interesting example of a positive development through democratizing this technology that can be a good way forward. All right, that's it. That's what I wanted to say.
Thank you, Mariah. Is there a very quick question from anybody for Mariah, or maybe even for Sime as well? No, everybody's like looking away and avoiding eye contact. Classic. I have a quick one for you then. You mentioned the increasing use of things like wearables as a way of monitoring good health data and therefore good performance. We're seeing this to a degree in China with the social credit system, but also in the US with private insurance. But we're also seeing, interestingly, the growth of behaviors to hack those devices, right? So there's lots of stories in America of people attaching their Fitbit to their car wheels so that it looks like they're exercising a lot more than they are. Is there a way of perhaps documenting, cataloging, and then bringing these examples into the discussion about what is good behavior, if it's not about the data?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think one of the big problems with these things is, like, in the medical science, we don't have any experience with monitoring healthy people 24 hours, 7 days a week. We don't know what that means. We only know it in very specific cases when people are in intensive care. So we actually don't know how our heartbeat is supposed to behave over the day. We don't know.
We only know not bad.
Yeah, as long as it keeps ticking. But there's it's really weird that already like health insurances would sort of like force this as a regulatory device when actually scientifically we don't know yet.
All right, okay, I think we're going to come back to this idea of normalization in the panel. So thank you again, Mariah. That's it, well done. All right, we're going to invite back Marianna Maruyama for the final presentation before we jump into the panel. So yeah, welcome, Marianna.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. So I just wanted to tell you a little bit about my upcoming work and to explain a little bit more in a different mode. So what I presented to you before was called specified, explicit, and legitimate purposes, and you might recognize that as the language of privacy policies. And that's because my work, my upcoming work, has a lot to do with privacy and that kind of language, and how it's enacted in real life, in everyday life, let's say. It's connected to work that has already begun, which is called Permissions, but it's also known as Loving with Both Hands, which is the name of which is a lyric from this Japanese pop singer and idol Yamaguchi Momoe, who's the kind of focus of that story. Yeah, this project, Permissions, I'll call it for short, it started already with a video that was screened last year in Hong Kong, and it's a project that will continue into becoming a performance that I will be working with IMPAKT to carry out. The project involves a lot of other people, so it's not just me as an artist. I'm working together with Yanis Sirikoglu, who's a programmer and sound artist. He's here. And I'm also working with Mirko Tobias Schaefer, who's one of the co-founders of the Utrecht Data School, which is just nearby. And he's working with me as a advisor in data ethics. So for me, it's interesting to learn a lot about this kind of question of what I will do as an artist in the sense of collecting information from the people in the audience, from the people I'm working with, and what I will do with that. So he pointed out all of these important questions to me. What is being collected? Why am I collecting it? How is it stored? Where will it be stored? For how long? Who controls it? All these questions that come up in the ethical considerations of an artistic performance. So I don't think that art has some exclusive is in some exclusive category where what we do doesn't matter. So I think it matters a lot. So yeah, so I think we also as artists, need to think about exactly what we're collecting and why. Yeah, so back to the story. I want to tell the story through the medium of something that most of us here probably in this room have on us already. It's not some new technology, but something we've been living with for some time already. And that's the phone, that's the cell phone. So I want to tell this story through the phone. I'm not going to tell the story of Momoe right now, but I think that if we have a chance to meet again, maybe in October, then that will be the time to hear the story of Momoe and the story of privacy, a kind of privacy. Yeah, so the questions are really how do we enact privacy, and also how do we abuse it or protect it. Yeah, and finally, I just coming finally to the body, I guess, is that I want to recognize the phone and the phone technology as an extensive prosthesis, so something that we use to extend what we already have, and it's not to replace anything, but to add on to something. So Of course, this is not an idea that's new probably or unfamiliar for you, but it's something that's already there, and we tend to really take it for granted. So this question, how many speakers are in a room? Well, we have how many people in a room? We have that many speakers too, and we have that many microphones, and we have that many cameras, and that's something that I want to draw out with this work and use it as a narrative, use the phone as a narrative device. So that's just a little bit about the project that's coming up that I'm working on, and some of the people I'm working with. So that's all I have to say. It's a quick one. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Stay back. Actually, should we just do the panel? Should we just get everybody back up? Marianna, stop running away. Come back. All right. Oh, I don't want to sit in the middle. You sit in the middle. I'll sit in the middle. I'll sit here. That's it. There we go. Lovely. All right. Thanks very much, folks. I've got a couple of things to start off with. I guess in the case of Veronika and Mariah, we both talked quite a bit about medical and applied prosthesis, things for very specific applications, particularly for people who perhaps are differently abled in some way or another. How do these technologies sort of find their way into the world? You know, because very often with medical technologies or advanced industry technologies, they end up finding commercial application elsewhere. You know, and we saw that with facial recognition that's now in every phone. We see it with gaffer tape, which was invented for the moon landings, for example. So are there ways that you can think about how we might start seeing brain-computer interfaces or more advanced prosthesis in, you know, an audience, for example, like in everyday life?
I mean, in the case of brain-computer interfaces, we also know that it is already a quite big application field in the field of neuromarketing. So it made its way into a market, not necessarily a good one, or not a one which we should be aware of. So I think there are quite many application fields out there, and as I said, also in the medical industry, they are applied ones. So at least this manufacturer in Austria, in our region, is actually using this for stroke patients, as I said. That's really an application field which is already in use.
Yeah, I should have thought of something. Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, some of the wearables are of course out there, but then it's also a really like fast-moving market. Like there's tons of startups like making this new revolutionary gadget. And there's some interesting questions there also, like, but and what happens to them is like this gadget comes out, people start using it, some people, then apparently not enough, and it disappears from the market. Although I imagine some of these companies are bought up by other big tech companies, and there's lots of questions there, like what happens to the data that was gathered. And so, and I mean, that's, I think, an industry, a topic, that's something that has been going on for a while, like the touch interface that we now use and that Apple apparently invented. Well, they didn't invent it. It was actually already out there, like early 2000s, but then they bought that company, kept it off the market for a couple of years, and then they were the big new inventors. So there is a lot of that happening. Yeah,
and we see the same with voice activation. They did the same there, and all sorts of things. I guess, Marianna, you talked a bit about the normalization of these prostheses. Like we've got them everywhere in our phones or laptops, or even embedded in the city all around us. Talk about the sensory city, and you folks are all talking about the prosthesis. I want to know about, again, I'm inviting you to speculate a bit about the way that the body might be extended in exciting ways, in ways that aren't normalizing people who are differently abled, as some of these prostheses attempt to do. But maybe I'm thinking of, for instance, the work of Stellark or Tom Thwaites' project Goatman, where he's just thought, well, I'm going to use all this to become a goat for a couple of days. Are there ways that we could seize? He did. It's really cool. If you haven't seen it, check it out. are there ways that we could seize these technologies? Are they becoming more available and open, perhaps, to actually start to sort of fantasize with them a bit, to do something that's quite more human and fulfilling than simply sort of normalizing or gathering data?
Well, yeah. I mean, people are already sort of extending their bodies. I mean, there are people very much into like body modifications and embedding magnets that have special sensors and things like that. And also, you don't necessarily need to go into the body to extend the body. And I mean, if you look at arts, like there's or in performance, there's already for a long time people have worked with sensors and created instruments. And I was interviewing a couple of dancers a few months ago, and just by having a sensor on their wrists and creating music with that, that already gave them a sense of extending their bodies, because they started to think of their body differently. And that's, I guess, basically with any kind of tool. Like if you hold a hammer, that's also an extension of the body, and it allows you to do certain things. So in that sense, maybe it's not something new, but maybe...
Yeah, I totally agree. It's not I think this is not something new. It's that any object has the potential to create a problem. It's kind of like what Jan said earlier about it's from Jan and Barbara about this quote from Paul Virilio, like the plane creates the plane crash. Any problem then creates an opportunity for people to come together to solve it, and also to help each other, and it also creates many opportunities to show what's really needed, what's necessary. So I think that's interesting. Like this, even with a phone. I mean, yeah, your phone breaks and you need to go to someone to get it to be fixed. So you have to talk to another person. Like actually.
Any thoughts, Veronika? You got 3 mics. You're all right.
Can't use them all. I mean, obviously the important thing for us also as a culture institution is to bring these new technologies in contact first with the general audiences, with not expert audiences, but also with artists, and give them the opportunities and also the skills and know-how to work with it and create then opportunities for artistic production. We do this very much in residencies, but we have of course showcased many examples where it was not about prosthetics or applied projects for industries and scientific fields or responsible research, but much more about the artistic content in general, where, for example, PCIs were used for painting pictures with robots and cases like this. But of course, yeah, the interesting applications, in particular, then for discussing also the extended opportunities and yeah. Is very connected also to the field of prosthetics and research projects.
Cool. Simei, did you want to add anything?
I'll think on.
All right, Simei's thinking. Are there any questions from the audience at all? Oh, one at the back up there. You're going to have to do the microphone. I can't hear you from others.
Yeah, I had a quick question for Mariah. Because like you were focusing on the relation between several disabilities and society and technology. So when you were doing like the raise your hands thing, it was mostly about like bodily disabilities. But like I myself have a form of autism, and it's often said when it comes to artificial intelligence that like something that most autistic people wish they'd had when growing up is like a social traffic light, like sort of red for stop now, orange for maybe, or green for like go on, it's okay. So like is sort of more like not bodily but more like mental type of disabilities also included in the realm of like what you're researching and doing?
Not directly at the moment, but it's definitely something I'm really aware of. Like, because I mean there's a lot, about neurodivergences of people that are very important to be attentive of. Yeah, I haven't yet sort of done a lot of research into that direction. Also not thought about how I would implement that. But it's definitely something that in different ways I encounter it also in my daily life. As very important topics to think about.
Thank you. Is there another question at all? More esteemed guests? No? All right, I've got a quick one then as well. Obviously, this is an interesting mini festival leading up to the IMPAKT Festival, and today we had an expert meeting where we were discussing some of the themes and the ideas, called an expert meeting, but I was there. So, I'm interested, because this comes up all the time when we're doing these things, and I curated IMPAKT 2 years ago. Why are we doing this work? Why are we talking about this stuff? You're doing research into prosthesis, you're curating some of this work and getting together all these kind of projects, and you're exploring it in your own way as your artistic practice. Why is it important for you to do this work? What does it give to the world to do public engagement with these projects, or to help specific cases, or to kind of lead people through these narratives?
For us, it's a extremely important engagement with audiences. So, as you also said, for us, it's extremely important to engage audiences in an active discourse on new technologies, on their impact, on their social impact, on their limits, and so on and so on. And we do this mostly through artistic production. Sometimes we do this through creative projects, or in the case of the excavator project, we do this more through collaborative opportunities, as I would call it. So this engagement and to give people a sense of what is out there and a compass to navigate in this world full of new technologies. And
I say something. I was really interested in this woman called Doreen Massey, who lived in Manchester. And she was talking about how space is not a static thing, actually. It's a process, and it changes all the time. And that as a person, what is around you, you can actually manipulate and change. Not manipulate, but you can make it what you want. And I find that really interesting in terms of society, like your connections between, like we all connect in some kind of way, but how do we actually make it, I'm not going to say positive, but how it works for everyone. So.
Yeah, I guess for me it's having this very mixed background between technology and art, and then also delving into these topics like artificial intelligence and how sensors work. I feel I can bridge a gap there, so I'm actually able to talk to people from humanities to actually explain what the technology can actually do. Because to actually understand, how a sensor works or what a certain software algorithm is actually doing, especially with the way AI is now hyped as something we can't understand it, and well, of course you can understand it. It's mathematics. It's algorithms. It's very well defined in a way. And there are ways of understanding these algorithms. You just have to try. But it's more opportunistic for big companies to say oh no, it's this big mystery and we don't know. And I think maybe computer scientists or computer engineers, they should spend a bit more time on actually understanding algorithms. And with my background as a physicist, where it's actually a lot about how do you translate a phenomenon that you observe into a formula. There are the tools there to actually understand stuff from. There's a formula, what kind of behavior does that entail, and that seems to be not something that computer engineers are concerned with or are trained in.
For me, it was interesting today during the expert meeting because I heard a lot of a kind of collective anxiety being voiced, and so I also have those anxieties and some fear as well. But I think that what I'm doing comes more from a place of curiosity and joy in this, and so I want to also to share that feeling that you have a choice in what you do, and yeah. And also to learn something for myself because it's pretty much out of my background. I mean, it's far from my background. And finally, to have, like Mercedes Bunz says, like to have a dialogue with technology. I need to do that too. And so I want to do that.
All right, questions, come on. That was a full 10 minutes to think about something. All right, there's one in the back in the middle there. We're running up. What's the time there?
So I was wondering about the BCI project, iWriter, because I was thinking if there was an artist that was disabled and could no longer move their body, right?
The iWriter is an eye tracking software. It's not a BCI project.
Sorry, it is?
The iWriter is not a BCI project. It is an eye tracking software.
But I was wondering if somebody who's an artist suddenly had to make art by their eyes. Is there not some sort of project where muscle activity in their fingers is measured and then translated to a drawing? Because I think that would be much more straightforward than making art with the eyes. Because when I make art, I don't use my
I don't know if that was an option in this case because he was completely paralyzed.
But I think if you're paralyzed, you can still, you can move your body, but you can still think about moving your body, I think. If that makes sense.
Yeah, we probably need to consult somebody being an expert here.
Because I know that if you, for example, have a stroke and then cannot speak anymore, you can still see in the body, in the brain. If you want to talk, you can still see.
That's activation.
Activation. So I think if you make art, it's kind of maybe in the same way.
Yeah. That would be then the model of a brain-computer interface.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well. Oh yeah, I was wondering if there was a project, but maybe you.
I just wanted to add that for the iWriter, the goal was to get the price under the 50 USD. So that's why they use this very cheap camera to track the eyes, not some BCI.
And there are projects out there where they use BCI for painting as well.
Yeah, I was wondering. Yeah, thank you.
Hello, it was a great presentation of everybody. Thank you very much. I want to kind of focus on more like the mental state of these prostheses, and I was just wondering if you maybe someone could elaborate on how we're going to accept these prostheses as part of our bodily models. So I think for glasses we already kind of accepted that these are part of our faces. And I think, like Marianna just told us, like the phone is already going towards that direction to see it as like really as part of our bodies. We totally accept that this is like an extended part of our bodies. But now with all these new kind of prostheses, I don't know, maybe just some thoughts of how we're going to accept all this kind of hardware in our bodies. As extensions, or maybe we have, yeah.
Are you talking about stuff that is already that is already made now, or ones that
which is made or which is developed, or like maybe like what will be developed? Like, to what extent we can accept it as part of our own? Like, can we really see that, or will it still, or will it always be like? This is technology which is added to us.
Well, I think there's two different questions in there, right? There's how do you accept it as an individual, as a person, and then how does society accept it? And these are like two different things. One can lead to the other, and yeah, it's kind of hard to project how that will be. And I think that's actually where we have to make this choice, because the sort of the dystopian scenario that I was pointing to was actually like, well, it's actually forced upon us. We're lured with getting discounts, or maybe we don't have another economical choice than to accept having the body, the smart body extension. So that's like, I think the way of getting our society to adopt these things that we should try and avoid. Like, I think people should have a choice, but that's also part of a very complicated, larger discussion in society about what happens if indeed you get like superpowers from having a body extension, and that's actually something that makes people nervous. Like if you look at the Paralympics, where people run with artificial legs and they can be much faster than people with real legs. So the people with real legs, the runners, they don't want to compete with the extended bodies because they feel inferior. So they feel nervous about the disabled body overtaking the abled body. I think that's, if you look at more sort of the further technology and the body aspects of genetic engineering and things like that, the discussion becomes even like more complicated, bioethical. Like, do we make humans better, or do we make better humans? And then the question, that's a really tough one. That we have to discuss. It has to be discussed, but it's really hard.
I thought I had something more to say, but you said it's very individual. I think that's also, I mean, that was my first thought. Is just each person will handle it differently, I think, in this generation at least.
But I do think the important thing is that as part of the process, which I was kind of saying before, but like it has to be disability-led, like from the beginning, and with people who have the experience, who can inform, because there's so many nuances that you just maybe assume this would work really well, but then maybe you've just totally missed out this one vital thing. So it's really like combining and discussing what actually, why do you make this? What is it for? What is the point of the whole thing? And then go from there, I guess. Sorry.
I suppose, I mean, interestingly, I was thinking just then, I'd be interested, or concerned rather, about the Californianization of the body, right? So in the same way that the city became Californianized by startup culture, and a colleague of mine describes the project of Silicon Valley as folding space-time around itself. You know, you develop things like Uber or Deliveroo that work in Silicon Valley because they're of the particular context of those people and their needs, i.e. they're working 18-hour days, they never learn to drive, they can't do their own washing, they're not very good cooks. So they invent these services to service them, they turn out to be really successful, then they export them into the world and they run into problems, right? And we're seeing that with the sort of singularity stuff of like Kurzweil and stuff, right? It's the Californianization of the body, what we need and what we prioritize here in Silicon Valley because we have the resources to deploy it everywhere else will just be forced upon you, and we will just keep barraging legislation and social and cultural nuance until you buy our particular product.
Yeah, but, I mean, I think there, like with this transhumanist vision, there's something really weird going on with, on one hand, having this idea of the perfect body, but on the other hand, wanting to abandon the body altogether, of uploading yourself into the net, wherever that is. so there's a weird paradox going on there, and I think we need to really get away from that worldview of the transhuman.
Is there? How are we doing for time? Go and check. Last question. And is there a final question from anybody? Or is it like everyone's just gagging for a beer? Just let me out. All right, let's wrap it up. My prosthesis actually says time for bed. So let's thank Sumay, Marianna, and Veronika for spending their time with us. That's it for today's proceedings. You can proceed to the bar. I don't know, Aryan, is there anything to advertise for tomorrow you'd like to?